My boyfriend, 32M, doesn't want to buy me, 27F, flowers. How do I tell him without being needy? So boyfriend, 32M, of 2 years. Side note. I am also pregnant with our son, we have a great relationship and live together, 27F, however, he refuses to buy me flowers. I've hinted for a long time at it because I wanted to feel like he wanted to on his own, not because I'm asking. Then for a while I just started to buy myself flowers, and now I finally was direct about it and told him that I do really want him to buy me flowers, and he laughed and said, I want $1 million, a nice house and a Ford Raptor. I was leaving out the door for work, so I just replied, a bouquet of flowers are less than $20. I don't want to keep bugging for it because that's just annoying, but how he responded just makes me so sad. How do I tell him without sounding ungrateful? He does do a lot for me and buys me other things, but this is just one little simple thing that would mean a lot to me. Also, what are anyone's thoughts on his response? What do you mean, how do I tell him? You already told him, he doesn't care. Do with that what you will. Personally, I would be upset if my partner reacted like this. His response to your expressing a need was to belittle you and make you feel bad about it. Might not be a big deal, but if my partner asked me to buy them flowers, I would just do it because I want them to be happy. When he asks for a blowjob, say, I want $1 million, a nice house, and a Ford Raptor. That was a dickish response. I'll take you at your word for the rest of your relationship because hey, this is Reddit. You being direct about it while walking out the door wasn't it. You're saying that it means a lot to you, so then sit down and explain it to him. I appreciate everything you do for me, but for one reason or another the gesture of my significant other giving me flowers would bring me a lot of joy. I'm not asking for 1,800 flowers, grocery store ones will work. Hell, grab them off the side of the road if they're pretty. When I brought it up the other day, your response made me feel a little less than. I know that that wasn't your intent, but that was how I felt. And give him time to ruminate, give you a response. If he doesn't, then that's on you to accept that or not. He sounds like a real winner. You wanting flowers is not being needy, and the fact that he totally blew you off says a lot about the guy. I bought flowers for my ex at least once a month. Now I buy flowers for my mom, don't have to wait till Mother's Day or her birthday. Some people only get flowers when it's their funeral. Life's too short to not give flowers to the women you love in your life. I'm 41M, about to move back in with my pregnant ex-wife, 37F. How can we make this work? My ex-wife is pregnant with our first child due on Christmas Eve. There's more detail in my profile, but essentially we broke up last Christmas and I moved back in with my parents 200+ miles away. She started a relationship with a coworker which caused so much drama at her work that in February she reached a mutual agreement that she would immediately resign in exchange for 6 months' salary. The relationship ended and she used the settlement money to restart the IVF process we'd paused years earlier. When I found out she was pregnant, I contacted the IVF clinic, who explained that the contracts we'd signed at the start of the process were still valid and they hadn't done anything wrong. I disagreed, and thanks to the advice, recommendations of our Legal Advice UK, I hired solicitors specializing in clinical negligence and contract law. They managed to negotiate a settlement with the clinic in lieu of legal action, and my ex and I ended up with about £80,000 each after fees. Plus the clinic updated their processes to require consent be reconfirmed by both parties before any embryo transfer takes place. For the last 4 months I've been in regular contact with my ex, discussing settlement negotiations and traveling down south for scans. When I asked why she did it, she just said that she knew this was her last chance to have a baby, and when she came into some money she took it as a sign that she should go ahead with the embryo transfer before I remembered to withdraw consent. She's since been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which in her mind has absolved her of any responsibility for her actions. She's desperate for us to get back together and raise our son as a family. I'm not interested in being a couple, but I obviously don't want to be 200 miles away from my son. I've got a new job, so I really didn't want to move back down to Hampshire, but she was willing to move up to Yorkshire as long as we lived together, so we agreed to spend the settlement money on a house in my hometown. I picked up the keys last week and I've been furnishing, decorating in preparation for us moving in next week. My ex has no friends or family round here and no job. It's living together is going to be super awkward, but once the baby comes I'm hoping we can get into a co-parenting routine. The new house has 3 bedrooms, so we'll have 1 each and 1 for our son. We've agreed not to see other people for at least 3 years, her request. What's the best way to navigate this situation? We're both very excited to be parents and I hope I'm making the best of a shitty situation, but it's obviously fraught with potential pitfalls. I don't see us rekindling a romantic relationship, but in an ideal world we'll live together for a few years then sell the house, by which point she'll be settled here and we can live close to each other and co-parent our son. I hope I'm not being unbelievably naive and making a huge mistake. My parents are excited to be grandparents, but they're not keen on the idea of us living together. You are being unbelievably naive and making a huge mistake. Apparently, you've also lost your mind. Not a mistake to want to co-parent. Huge mistake to buy a house together and agree to not see other people for 3 years. UX has shown herself to be a manipulative liar. Do you really think you are going to have a peaceful 3 years? I know you have already bought a house. My suggestion is to have a plan B so you won't get caught out, e.g. Plan B of selling the house and co-parent in separate houses, etc. Any signs of your ex being manipulative again, don't be surprised and act on plan B. Why did she get any money from a settlement against the clinic, when she mindfully and knowingly used the clinic? You're being unbelievably naive and making a big mistake. Sorry dude, she is in dire need of therapy and likely medication for her bipolar. It's going to be extremely difficult with a newborn and all the postpartum hormones she's going to be experiencing. Get some support in place now before the baby comes. And be prepared to seek legal action to gain custody of your son if it comes to that. You're making a huge mistake. Why the hell would you agree to live with her alone, buy a house together? She just thinks you'll get back together. It doesn't matter if you tell her it won't happen. Agreeing to live with her indicates otherwise. It's not fair to give her false hope. And you've allowed her to move somewhere where she will have no one. Agreeing to not see anyone for 3 years isn't reasonable. You should be co-parenting, not living together like most people do, and you should both be free to see other people. Sorry, this is going to end in disaster with you tied together financially because of the house. I can't believe you would want anything to do with someone who would create a child like this. Y'all too old to be making these dumb ass decisions. How do I, 36F, tell my friend, 36F, of 20 plus years why I don't like her gifts? I, 36F, have a close friend, 36F, that I met in high school. I'll call her Anne for the rest of the story. We've been off and on close during the course of our entire 20-plus year relationship, but about 5 years ago, we started working together at the same company. This has really brought us a lot closer and, despite how different we can be, we've developed a strong, caring, uplifting friendship that we both value. Except, Anne is kind of an awful gift giver. I put gift in quotation marks because 90% of her gifts are hand-me-downs from her own life. There is an outstanding 10% where, on very special occasions, weddings, births, she'll take a lot of time to put something special and meaningful together. That other 90% though, for years now, I've gotten hand-me-downs for birthdays and Christmas. At one point, a couple of years ago, I told her, hey, how about we just prioritize experiences together for things like this? That way we don't have to think about gifts. She loved the idea, and I do enjoy the experiences, but mainly I just wanted her to stop giving me hand-me-downs. To clarify, these are not high-end, never been used. I already have a fancy blender, things. 2 years ago for Christmas, I got a candle, a loofah, and a book she'd read. Clearly, she'd received these things at some point and didn't want them. Also, she is not strapped for money. She makes what I do and her husband makes more than mine. They have nice cars, they own their home, she buys nice stuff for herself. Her kids go to private school. Then, 3-ish months ago, my husband and I got pregnant. Anne has been super supportive, but she's taken to dropping off used maternity clothes at my desk. Her style is not even close to mine. We're very different in fashion taste. Also, these clothes are clearly worn. The dress she gave me today has holes in the bottom hem and the armpits. When she first did it, she left a velvet orange tracksuit at my desk, no note or indication of who it was from. Not the first time she's dropped a gift with no from. So I text her and she confirms it's from her. She adds, if you don't like or want it, you can just give it away. This is her go-to with these clothes. She gives it to me, and if I don't want it, she expects me to then donate it. So really, she's giving me clothes or a job to do, and 99.5% of the time, it's been a job to do. Finally, I told her, gently, that if I don't like them, I'll give them back to her because I don't really have time, energy for another to do on my list. After a bit of back and forth, she accepted. Then today, she drops off more clothes with a note which reads, I know you don't like gifts, surprises, but if you don't want these you can give them away, throw them away, or give them back to me. Here's my problem. I do like gifts. I do like surprises. I just don't like her hand-me-downs, and coming into a busy work day to find an unexpected to-do on my desk is not a good surprise. I wish she understood that a gift, surprise is something that I want, something I asked for, or something she's sure I'll like. Her social cue reading is not top-notch, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I would like a way out of this. I really want her to just stop giving me things she doesn't like anymore. How do I help her understand this while preserving our friendship? Anne, I appreciate your generosity, but please do not give me any clothes or other items. It is actually becoming stressful for me. I prefer if we stick to experiences like we agreed, and do not give items as gifts to each other. I will be giving everything right back to you because trying to figure out what to do with it is not something I have time to do. Then, give everything right back to her. Every time. Hey Anne, thank you for the thought in trying to supply me with some of your prior maternity clothes. To save the time of going through clothes while at work, I think it would be mutually beneficial if you could send me pictures of clothes you may be looking to donate so I can choose from there as opposed to physically returning the extras to you. See, when I read the title I was expecting her to buy the ugliest weirdest thing she found at the store that she thought you'd actually like. Tell that chick to stop giving you trash. Those aren't gifts and she knows they're not. Next time she'd just hand it back and say, girl, stop giving me people's used stuff, I have enough junk. Either she'll get the hint or get offended, and if she gets offended simply just remind her of all the used stuff she's given you and you would rather not have the used stuff. Girl, you're just going to have to say it. Tell her she is giving you trash and you don't want trash. Give it right back the second she hands it to you. Girl, she's just dumping her old stuff on you because she can't be bothered to throw it away. It's not a compliment. I'm not so sure she's the friend you think she is. She's decluttering and doesn't really want to trash or donate, so she dumps it on you. Emphasize again that you don't want any physical gifts. And maybe add on a couple of names of thrift shops you suggest she to try her items to. My 42M wife, 43F, was sneaking out with a coworker. What can I do? I was in a bad place about 5 years ago. I lost both my parents to cancer and had to deal with their estates. I have a sibling as well, but we are not close and they were making this really hard for everyone. It was a tough time and I was very depressed. My wife and I were together for 10 years prior to getting married, and we had been married for 4 years at this point. During this time, my wife would come home from work and talk non-stop about a new coworker. It was to the point where I jokingly asked if she had a crush on this guy, which she got offended at and said no. A little background here, my wife had always had a large group of male friends and I've never had a problem with that. She was even friends with another male coworker who would occasionally come over and hang with both of us. As long as I got to meet them and get to know them, I had no issues with male friends. Anyway, one time she mentioned she was going out to the store for cigarettes. There are many stores around us, so this is a 10-15 minute trip tops. It took her over an hour to get home. I asked if she went to Timbuktu because it took forever. She said she got stuck behind a train at the tracks. That doesn't make sense, but I gave her the benefit of doubt. Maybe she was doing some secret gift shopping or something. But this started becoming a regular thing, twice a week, 3 times a week, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Every time she came home it was, I got stuck behind a train. Now this is the part I'm not proud of myself for. I started checking her phone for messages between her and this new coworker. There were none there on my first few checks. Then, one day when I checked, there it was. A new message between the two of them asking about meeting up the last time she disappeared. So now I know where she's going on these trips out. The next time she was going to the store, I asked her point blank if she was meeting this coworker and she said no. I asked her again where she was going and mentioned I knew who she was going to meet with. She doubled down on the lie, so I came clean about seeing the message on her phone. That conversation was a tough one. She acknowledged she had been disappearing to meet this coworker but insisted it was just to give him some weed. She said she would delete his number from his phone and no longer talk to him outside of work. I lost all trust in her, but she said she was willing to work on gaining my trust again. A few weeks later the coworker quit working there. Honestly, it still really bothered me. About a year later she told me the coworker was back working there, which opened the conversation again. She said that the coworker was really flaky and would leave her waiting for hours with the weed for him, and that's why it took so long. About a year ago I noticed she stopped wearing her wedding engagement rings. She said they don't fit anymore. I told her I'd get them resized for her, but she shot that down. They both do still fit, FYI. Anyway, this conversation led to more talk about the coworker. She told me that she wasn't getting what she wanted out of our relationship with me being so depressed. It was difficult for her to talk to me, so she was meeting with the coworker to talk about us, me, and other life stuff she couldn't talk to me about. Now, as far as I can tell, this qualifies as emotional cheating. She was hiding this friend from me and she's never hid any friends from me before. Over this 5-year period, our relationship feels more like roommates. There is zero romance over this period. It always brings me back to what she said about not getting what she needs from me, so she looked elsewhere. I really hope she's not looking elsewhere for romance. I brought it up a few times, and it usually ends with her angry with me. She says not everything is about sex. I get it, I'm not asking for sex though. Like, how about curling up and cuddling with a good movie? Or attempting to even just go to bed at the same time? She says she wants to work on things, but all this time later it feels the exact same. She mentioned she doesn't want a divorce and is still in love with me, but I'm not feeling this love at all. She said if it was ever going to get to divorce, that it would have to be me making that decision. I'm not sure how to approach this. I'm not sure I can bring this up anymore without getting a huge fight going. The other thing bothering me was every time we talked about it, I would get a little bit more information that I was missing before. What can I do here? During the 4 out of 5 years of marriage there's been involvement of a new coworker. She takes her rings off and there's zero romance. Do you want to sit around forever with the wrong one, or do you want to go and find the right one? You'll never be able to trust her again. My personal opinion is that, while it might be a difficult step to take, you should just end the marriage and both move on. If she comes crawling back, you still know you haven't been able to trust her in 4 out of 5 years of your marriage. Be the bigger person and let her live with regret for the rest of her life. Okay, she doesn't want a divorce, but don't you? No romance for 5 years? I think it's been over for a long time. You're simply staying because that's what you've always done with her. But maybe it's time to consider that this marriage has ran its course. She's been blatantly cheating on you for 5 years. You've done jack shit to stop it. So keep sitting doing nothing. Keep letting her be fulfilled elsewhere. OBV, you don't give a fuck. Why should anyone here on this sub? You have lived with it for 5 years. What's another 30 or 40? Weed equals blowjob. This is the most laughable thing I've ever read. You must be the most gullible masochist that ever lived. She is out of this marriage long time ago. She cheated emotionally, but cheating anyways. She wants you to start divorce so she can say you are the villain here. You can't trust her anymore. Why stay in a loveless marriage?